Hey, everybody, good evening. You are here for a mental health movie review. I am here with one of my good friends, Black Christian therapist, all into all the things, Miss Jermay. Say hey, Jermay.
Hey.
So, we started talking. It's hard to watch movies, shows, any type of entertainment without giving it some type of therapeutic assessment. So it was
Mhm.
no different when we started watching Creed 3. It was such a good movie. So we're going to get into some of the mental health implications that we saw all throughout. I was just telling Jermaine before we went live that I ended up with a happenstance watching 1 and 2 and seeing some of those themes come to fruition in Creed 3 was like, ooh, this is major. So if you haven't watched the movie and you don't want spoilers, hop off this live.
Hop
This
off.
isn't for you, sweetie.
Watch the
When you
replay
watch the
broadcast.
movie, boo, you can come back, you can watch it on Facebook Live or YouTube. Then it will
Mhm.
be for you. This right here, this isn't for you because we're gonna drop spoilers. This is for people who've watched the movie or you don't mind the movie being spoiled for you. So, Jermaine, let us know what you thought about the movie. I know your boo is in it. That's why I wanted to do this with you. So, how did you feel about it? What did you think?
Listen, I try not to, as clinicians, we try not to overanalyze, therapize things. But listen, I was sitting there sipping on my drink, eating the mozzarella sticks, like, ooh, wait a minute, my clinical brain was like going off. Um, it was great. First of all, the fact that my husband, Mr. Michael B. Jordan, the fact that he directed and acted, there was so many like themes that were in there. And, with a meddling mother, with the past creeping up on you when you don't deal with things, the mental health that men face. Like, I'll never forget the scene where he was like sitting in his room and his wife was trying to get him to talk and he like shut down. And I was like, ooh, the way that is very accurate, sir. There
Yeah.
was just so much in there. And I said, ooh, mm-hmm, this is on time. This is on time, sir.
It's on time, and you just
Mhm.
came off the heels of a Black men mental health entire series.
Yeah.
I think it was like a perfect culmination of that, right? This came on the heels of that because we do not focus enough on the mental health of Black men, right? That's no shade to any other race, right?
Right.
But if we look at historically and systemically the population or the people who have been most neglected in mental health
Mhm.
with resources, it looking cool or you're not man enough if you
Yeah.
go see someone and ask for help, like that has been stigmatized for Black men.
Yeah.
There is no other population that can make that claim, right?
Not at
There are
all.
other men who go and do this. So I'm glad that it really focused on that. And when you mentioned that his wife was going to try to talk to him and get him to speak about what's going on, that's what happened in Creed 1. That's what happened in Creed 2, right?
Mhm.
She
Mhm.
was trying to get him to talk. And actually
Yeah.
in Creed 1, his wife, she wasn't his wife yet, but she was his girl, his little
Uh-huh.
boo.
Uh-huh.
She was like, why didn't you tell me your uncle was Rocky? Or why didn't you tell me this? Or I'm finding out a bunch of secrets about you.
Mhm.
And I could tell, just getting back into 3, we're just going to jump all throughout.
Yeah.
She was so offended that he didn't tell her about what happened at the convenience store. He didn't tell her about Dame. He didn't tell her about anybody.
Mm-mm.
And how are you married to someone and you're not revealing everything? I think that
Right.
was really hurtful. But like you're saying, that is exactly what happens
Mhm.
with our Black men in our
Mhm.
relationships. And it causes such a great divide.
Yeah. A huge divide. And I think it's hard for us as women to show up for the men when it's like, first of all, if we don't know the pain, like what are we supposed to do with it? And then secondly, it's like I think what his wife started to realize, like she had to talk to Dame about her husband to find out the truth and then had to confront him on it. And it's like we shouldn't have to do the dance around asking your mama, your sister, your childhood friend. Like it's about opening up and having that space and feeling like I can share, right? Because a lot of things he tried to hide, and I mean that's a traumatic response, right? Like when we don't deal with the trauma, we shove everything down with it. the people, the memory, the behaviors that come from it, we shove it all down. So, you know, rightfully so, he's not going to openly say, like, oh, so by the way, this happened, right? And I think something when the daughter was interested in boxing and she was telling him, like, no, because she's going to think the only way to handle things is through fighting. He's like, but that's the only way to handle things. And so it's like she's realizing, like, oh, okay, so this isn't just a I'm doing this because my father was a boxer. This is, I'm covering up a lot of stuff, and I got a lot of anger because I have stuff that I've held on to, and so I'm just going to take it out on other people. And it's like, ooh, the connections of it all.
The connections, and it almost makes you take a step back and breathe. Like, this is what we experience, this is what we go through, this is the daily life,
Mm-hmm.
where, sometimes it's traumatic because we tell Black men, I can only speak from that experience. I'm not a Black man, but I've been around so many, right? Raised with a brother and things like that. We
Yeah.
tell them, man up, don't cry, don't
Mm-hmm.
show your emotions, don't be
Yeah.
sad, be tough. I mean, in
Yep.
Creed 1, we saw
Yep.
little Adonis. He was rocking someone's jaw, right? In the juvenile detention, punching and fighting. That's all he knows, right? Was
Yeah.
fighting and being aggressive. And that's how he showed his emotion. And so we tell them to suppress their emotion, or we tell them that they can't do anything or expose themselves. And then we as women, when we want them in a romantic relationship, we're like, why aren't you showing any emotion? Why aren't you showing this? It is a complete contradiction. And now it's like
Mm-hmm.
peeling back the layers. And so we see Adonis having to really decide, do I want to keep these secrets or do I want to maintain my family? Like, his daughter saw him getting all rowdy and buck and things like that. I guarantee he never wanted her to see him like that. That for me
Right.
was a big moment. It was like, oh shoot. She
Yeah.
was so afraid, deaf or
Mm-hmm.
not. She picked up the body language and she was like, who is this man? I don't even recognize my dad.
Mm-hmm. And you know, the unfortunate thing is that, like, he retired, right? So, and he was like, I'm done. I'm just going to be the coach, the owner of the gym.
Yep.
And you know, you really have to sit back and my brain was like, okay, so are you coming out of retirement because you feel like you have something to prove? Are you coming out of retirement to fight your past? What is pushing you to come out of retirement? But like throughout all of the creeds, it always took something to pull him out, right? It was always like, oh, I got something to prove, and like his chest poked out, and maybe pride got in the way, and he's like, no, I'm going back. He didn't consider what that meant for his body. He didn't consider what that meant for his relationship. He didn't consider what that meant for Rocky. He didn't consider what that meant for his mom, because like in the creeds, his mom is like, I'd rather you not fight, but you already chose this, so what do you want me to say, you know? And it's like, I don't know if that's the inner like athletic dog that we all have as athletes. Like we're like, I'm gonna do what I need to do. Or was he driven to fight because the physical fight was a representation of that internal fight that he's been
Ooh,
doing,
that
right?
is good. That
Mm,
is good because, right, he stopped fighting physically,
yep.
but inside he was still bop, 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 bop.
Hmm.
And you know what? I started to wonder, does he even know his identity outside of fighting?
Right.
Right. A big no, when someone retires or when someone has wrapped their entire identity around fighting, and that's who he is from young all the way up until now. Adonis has been fighting. He's fought in the group home. He's fought here, fought there. We
Hmm.
see that in Creed 3, right? We knew
Hmm.
he was in the juvenile detention. We didn't know about the group home, but we heard about the abuse. And so again, I'm just saying for spoilers, we're talking about Creed 3. If
Hmm.
you have not seen it, get out of here. Come back later.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Those in the chat, tell us what you thought. You know what I mean? Tell us what you
Hmm.
thought about what you saw, what things that you noticed and picked up on. But Adonis has fought his entire life. Does
Hmm.
he know who he is outside of the fight, outside of the physical ring, but outside of the chaos? He's living in peace now, right?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
living with his family. He has millions of dollars. He's at peace. He's a celebrity. Does he know how to be at peace? Do
Hmm.
we know how to be at peace? If we've been in chaos so long,
There it is.
turmoil, the
Hmm.
fight.
Hmm.
I came from a home, my mom and dad argued all the time. That
Hmm.
does It meant to Dave, I'll argue you down. Do I know how to exist in peace once I'm out of a chaotic situation? It didn't look like Adonis did, and that was the like inner turmoil.
Yeah. You know, we do that. And I tell people that one of the biggest enemies to like being progressive is familiarity. We don't move because it's foreign, it's unfamiliar. Like, what
Yeah.
does healing look like? I don't know. So I'm just going to continue all of these cycles over here. And that's the pain that I feel like Adonis was, all he knew was fighting. All
All
he
he
knew
knew.
was throwing blows. All he knew was, I'm good at this, so this is what I'm going to do. But I feel like in Creed 3 at the beginning, you found out like he was a businessman and he knew how to encourage other people. He saw talent in other people. So it was there. But even the other trainer kept getting on him like,
Mm-hmm.
you got to reel these dudes in. Like
Mm-hmm.
when Dame came on the scene, he was like, are you going to control this dude, or are you just going to give him leeway because you feel guilty,
Oh,
right?
girl. You talking about guilt? Because that's the good segue. We're
Mhm.
talking about familiarity.
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
Adonis, he could not get over himself. He could not control this beast. He could not control this pit bull, this dog that was now off the leash. And I'm not
Mhm.
talking about the physical of Dame. I'm talking about what was inside.
Yeah,
All you do in prison, I've never been, and I pray that I never go. Lord, hear my
yeah,
prayer. I pray that I never do anything to have to be behind the walls. God
yeah,
bless everyone who is there praying for you, sending love, light, and all that, right?
yeah.
All you have to do is think about your past mistakes, the ones you left behind, vendettas, and people that you want to get when you get out. All Dame had to think about was my boxing career that was thrown away. He
Mhm.
told Adonis that he watched every fight.
Yep.
He probably rewatched it and looked at it and saw it. He told him, I watched every fight,
Mhm.
imagining in his mind that is supposed to be me. So all he had on his mind was, I need to get back in that ring. I don't
Mhm.
care if I'm old. I don't care if it puts Adonis at risk. I don't care who I
Mhm.
hurt. I don't
Mhm.
care who I destroy. We saw what
Mhm.
he did. He planned that guy's, downfall. He
Mhm.
planned to hurt him. He used his boy in, like, we see all that. And so
Yeah.
then it makes it say, what happens when you allow guilt to control the car, right?
Mhm.
Adonis, that car was driven by guilt now, and it makes
Mhm.
you pull back when you should go forward. It makes you
Mhm.
quiet when you should speak up.
Yeah. And it took the whole movie for
A
them
whole
to sit
movie.
down and say like, you know what? Let's be done. Like let's move on. Like you could have missed the whole entire, I mean, I know it's good for cinema, right?
Right.
But it's like you could have missed the whole fighting, the whole backlash, the whole backbiting. You could have missed all of that. But again, it's a representation of sometimes not just how men deal with things, but how when you sit in resentment and you sit with bitterness and anger, you sit with guilt and fear, it'll literally fuel you to do stuff. And it's like all you had to do was sit down and say I'm sorry, or sit down and say like, I didn't mean to rob you of the stuff. Thank you
Yep.
for taking the rap for me, because
Yep.
you didn't have to pull out your gun if I didn't get so reactive and fight the foster dad or whoever he was. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to do that, and you didn't have to do that for me. And it's like, how easy of a conversation could that have been? But again, when everything around you is conducive for fighting and for like having an outburst, that's all you know. So you don't have the tools to just have a conversation. It's like, just have a, that's why I tell people all the time, like, just have a conversation.
A
Like, come on,
conversation.
talk.
And we make something so simple very difficult. And I think this is a good segue to talk about that meddling mama, right?
Mm,
Where, sometimes we think that we're helping, we're assisting, we're aiding someone, or we're keeping them from danger or harm. Mama Creed added more fuel to the fire. If
mm,
she had let Adonis see the letters, right? I'm not a mom, but I can only imagine that I might have done something similar, right?
mm-hmm,
That my son was tangled up with someone who's considered to be a bad seed, maybe
mm-hmm,
going down the wrong road, things like that. She probably didn't care for him, didn't want Adonis to be back in that life, kept the letters, which fueled that
Mhm.
anger inside
Mhm.
Dame. He's like, you forgot about me, you abandoned me. Abandonment and rejection, if those are the emotions that are running your life, my God, today you are liable to do anything.
True.
You're liable to run over anyone with a steamroll and you'll run
Mhm.
back and forth. All
Mhm.
you care about is being accepted again, right?
Mhm.
Flashing forward to that scene where Dame, wins the championship and knocks that guy out. He's looking like, Adonis, are you proud of me? And Adonis looks like ashamed. And then you saw Dame's face just drop.
Mhm.
Like all
Mhm.
the emotions in that. I'm like, yeah, he did it to make someone feel proud. Like I'm back on top. It
Mhm.
really hurt everybody. And he didn't care. And that's what it does. It makes you not care about anyone's feelings, emotions, how it affects anyone. You just are out for yourself.
Mhm.
All because Mama Creed kept those letters. Should
Mhm.
not have done that. Really quick, I'm just saying blessings and hey to everybody in the chat. God bless you. Please share. Jump in with any comments or anything. If you
Yeah.
saw the movie, what you think, if you agree, if you disagree, you have a different perspective, talk
Mhm.
back to us. But
Yeah.
yeah, Mama Creed, she really turned up the flame on this. If he had seen the letters, he could have responded. He could have said thank you. He could have said, I appreciate you, but it was like he abandoned him. That makes you
Mhm.
do some crazy stuff.
I I was just sitting there when that scene happened and they were in the
Girl,
kitchen and she just pulled out this box and I said,
girl.
"Oh God. Oh God. Okay." And I was wondering in my head, cuz again, I'm not a mother either and it's like I think as mothers, as parents, you try to like create that buffer for your kids like, "Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
just want to save my babies from
Right,
this cruel world." And it's like, "Yes, but like, how long did you have to wait? Like, he is a whole adult with a whole family.
right.
This has been years, and it took you. And it's like, would she have gone to the grave with those letters?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, why did you even still keep them? Like, I'm thinking in my head, like, I would have thrown them suckers out, so there's no proof.
I would have,
So,
I
like,
would have burned them. I would have
right,
lit them on fire.
yeah. So I was like, why did we keep them? Like, what is a purpose? And again, in life, I think we do that. We have little trinkets, we have little things that we keep that reminds us of the pain, that reminds us of our poor choices. There's keepsakes that we have. And it's like, well, why? Like, is it serving a purpose? Is it reminding you of why you do the things you like? What purpose does that serve? And I think, throughout Creed 3, it was just like the past is coming. The past is coming. Like even with his wife in her death, she was like, it's getting worse to the point where I may not be able to ever hear again. So I have to roll out all of my songs and producing things now because like it just seemed like that was a theme. Like the past is coming, the past is catching up with you, the past is here, and no matter how much you knew about it, it'll come and it'll like snatch your life if you're not careful.
If you're not careful, I think that was the underlining, like that undercurrent, like
Yeah.
the past is going to catch up with you no matter what.
Right. Right.
If we don't handle the past, then our past will handle us. Same thing with trauma. If we
Oh yeah.
don't take care of our trauma is going to really take care of us. It's going to put us down. It's going to come and haunt us.
Mm-hmm.
We might as well just settle it and put it to rest. He
Mm-hmm.
thought if he hid, and his wife said, "You're trying to forget, you're trying to forget the past and rewrite it." It's okay, right? Now we talking about like, all right, narrative therapy, right? We want to try to rewrite a story. Don't get you like, you know what I mean? That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite modalities. Awesome. But we can't fabricate a lie. If something didn't happen or something did happen, if we don't uncover it, get down to the root, get down to those layers, start peeling those things back, we are done. It's going to come up on us like a big wave. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
crash us. It's going to knock
Mm-hmm.
our boat off kilter. It's going to knock us out. And you know what? Not treating trauma can be selfish, right? If you have a wife and a child, a career, you're connected to your family, you're connected to a whole bunch of other people,
Mm-hmm.
because we're no good if we're stuck in this traumatic sense. He
Yeah.
wouldn't talk about it. He wouldn't talk about it. He kept it hidden. He kept it down. That trauma was like, I will not be ignored. I will
No.
not be denied. You know what I've started saying, Jermaine? That feelings are like jealous lovers.
Oh yes. Oh,
that
yes.
that if we don't treat them right, if we don't pay attention to them right, if we don't express our love language to them right, quality time, they are going to pop up in places we don't want them. Adonis saw that. These emotions, this trauma, this stuff came up, had him knocking stuff over, punching stuff down. That's what you did in Creed 1. In Creed 3, you're a grown man, right? With a family and you're a husband. And
Yeah.
you taking
Yeah.
Creed 1 stuff into Creed 3 because it's untreated. It's
Yeah.
unhealed. That's what
Mhm.
happens.
You know, my pastor love him. Hey, Bishop.
Hi, Bishop.
He said something that was so true. Now he was talking about relationships. He said, if you are kicking someone out, make sure you clean the house, because if they leave a sock, they're coming back for that sock. They're like, excuse me, I left something. I just, that sock, that black sock. Yeah, I'm gonna need both pairs. I'm gonna go get it, and then they come back because you left something, or they left something. And sometimes in life, because of trauma, like trauma is that uncharted territory. It's that closet in the back, that dark place that's like, I don't know what's back there, so we're not gonna go. And in all of the creeds, it took someone to poke at that door, like, what's back here. If it wasn't Rocky, it was his mother. If it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't his mother, it was the Russian guy. He was poking at it in Creed 2. Now Dame is like, oh, but I'm here. So now you have to go there. And clients that I know of, and people that I know of, it's a very scary thing to go into that closet, because they're like, I don't even know what's in there anymore.
Yep.
So and I think when you are forced to face it with anybody, it'll hit a down spiral, because you're like, I wasn't ready for this. I didn't ask for this. It was forced on me, and that's very uncomfortable.
It is very uncomfortable. And when you have to deal with trauma that has now exploded out of the box, like a jack in the
Mhm,
box,
mhm,
you don't have a choice. So it's better, right? So
mhm,
here, it's better to treat it, right? It's better to say, let me go get my help. Let me go talk about this. Let me go find a confidant. Let me
mhm,
go find a professional, a life coach, a therapist. Let me go
mhm,
find someone to talk about this, because the trauma's coming out no matter what. Trauma that explodes like a bomb. What happens with a bomb? It leaves shrapnel, it leaves everything in its wake, destroyed, on fire, burning,
mhm.
skin peeling. That's what happened. And
Yeah.
you're right. It's like every character pulled another piece, right? You pull it, you pull it, you pull it, and then that thing just blows up and explodes.
Mhm,
Now, Adonis, you have to deal with it, sir. You don't have a
mhm,
choice.
mhm.
Instead of you going and talking to someone like your wife encouraged you to do in Creed 1, in Creed 2, in
Yeah.
Creed 3. Now,
Yeah.
by Creed 4, if I don't see him on somebody's therapist couch talking to somebody, I'm writing Ryan Coogler, my boy. Please, would you please invite this? Because I think people watch this and you can relate it to your life, right?
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
so, black men, again, I'm not a black male. I'm just saying, from my perspective, I'm like, black men are probably like, I can identify with this scenario. But on the flip side, don't be like Adonis. Get help. Seek
Mhm,
out wise counsel, right? Where there is
mhm.
safety. That's the word. Seek out that
Safety.
wise counsel. And Jermaine, I'm about to land this plane, but when you were talking about what your bishop said, and I'm saying, hey to my pastor, hey, Pastor G. So what your bishop said, reminds me of what it says in the Bible, where you clean out your house, right? You clean
Mhm,
it out, you wipe it out, but if you don't fill that thing back up, if you don't seal that thing back up, then the
mhm.
demon you drove out is coming back with 7 demons
Seven.
stronger, and they're
Yep.
not coming to knock and play games. They're coming to kick
Mhm,
your door in, right? So
mhm,
we can clean up and we can get delivered and get healed and be okay. Adonis was okay, right? He's in a better space. He wasn't in poverty. He was never really in poverty. After he got with the creeds, he was okay,
mhm.
but inside he was in mental anguish. if
Absolutely.
you if you just get in a different space, but mentally you're still in the same space, you're
Mhm.
bringing all that trauma with you. So
Yeah.
clean up the house, yes, and fill that thing back up with right treatment. You get you a treatment plan, you get you a support team to make sure that you're doing okay.
Mm. The biggest, like, mind blowing thing that I had a conversation with one of the ladies from my church, and she said, if you don't allow someone to grow up, they'll always be stuck at that version. So like trauma, the other F that people ignore is the freeze, right? And so there's no wonder why Adonis, when he has his moments, he's acting like a little 12-year-old because that's where he
Mm-hmm.
stops growing up mentally, emotionally. That's where he stops growing up, right? So, what do 12-year-olds do? They have fits, they want to hit something, they want to kick something, they
Yep.
want to throw everything. It just looks like different because it's in an adult version. And it's like Adonis never grew up. He never got the ability to find out who he was because his father passed and then his mother had health problems, his wife has, she was losing her hearing, and now he has a daughter who's completely deaf, and they're like having to sign. And I think he's like, oh, okay, I got this. But you find the true character of a person in 3 seasons, right? When they're at rock bottom, when they're on the mountaintop, right? Those two I think we're aware of. But like when you go through stuff and you're having a moment, your true character pops out because we
Huh.
can't fake emotion, we can't fake pain, we can't fake it. So it's like if you really want to find out who a person is, catch them in the valley, catch them in the mountaintop, and you'll probably find out who they really are and how you go through. Adonis went through as a 12-year-old boy.
Yes, he did. That's so good. I love that. I really
Mhm.
do. Because it's like you behave at the age of your trauma, wherever you got stopped. I mean, trauma retards. I'm not saying that as a derogatory term, but
Yeah.
that's what it means. It slows you down. It stops
Yeah.
the entire process. It's like you're
Hmm.
moving through concrete or like water and you're trying to move. He acted like a 12-year-old boy. I don't want to speak. I don't want to talk. And it was like he tried to put a facade or a mask on. You can only put that on for so long before that thing starts to crack and break. And we saw little breaks of that. We saw little
Hmm.
cracks of that. And then
Hmm.
it finally just shattered. And then you leave all this trauma in the wake, right?
Yeah.
Untreated trauma creates more trauma. That's a
Absolutely.
reality.
Oh yeah.
Like it just
Hmm.
happens.
Yeah.
You don't treat your trauma, you begin to behave in a certain way, you treat people wrong. His wife, I mean, they didn't look like they were going to make it. Honestly,
Yeah.
as a woman, if I'm asking you to go get help and you're refusing and you're affecting not only me but my child,
Hmm.
I don't know. Yes, till death do us part for sure. Absolutely,
Hmm.
we're gonna have to have a conversation
Oh
because
yeah.
now because now you're a danger to everybody in the house.
I don't know if everyone picked up on it, but you remember in Creed 2 where he lost.
Mm-hmm.
Like
He got beat
Drago's
up.
son tore that man up. And you would think as he started to heal from that, there was not one scene of him talking to a therapist. There was not
Not
one
one.
scene of him consulting anybody else. His response was, I'm going to get back into the ring and I'm going to fight. I'm going to get back into training and I'm going to fight. And it's like, even when life knocks us down, we still don't pause. We still don't say, like, okay, let me take advantage of this moment and really reevaluate. Like, if I must fight, sure, but let me make sure my head is clear when
Yep.
I go back. And that's what Rocky said. Rocky's like, why are you even fighting? Are you trying to avenge your father? Like, what is it? Nah, Unc, you see what he did to you and what he did to my father. And it's like, that was our fight. And again, talk about generational trauma, right?
Come on.
We take it and we say, well, it wasn't fixed here, so I'm just going to continue it. I take your pain and I make it my own. And it's like,
My
hold
mind.
on. Rocky fought and Rocky did what he had to do. And just because Drago was so like, oh, I have to get back at Rocky, that's between him and Rocky. Why you invested and you decided to take on that weight, don't know. You didn't have to, right? But again, trauma does, there's nothing logical about trauma. There's no
No.
like, oh, let me pause and let me really think. It's just, this is what you want to do. This is what we're doing.
Yep. Yep.
Crazy.
Absolutely. I
Mhm.
love that. There is nothing logical about trauma. There is
Mhm.
no reason, there is no order. It just goes and drives and plows through. It runs through walls. It knocks over stuff. It sets fire to things. It blows up things. There
Yeah.
is no rhyme or reason. It just happens.
Yeah.
And you know what? It is that generational stuff that passes down. And I also feel like, even especially in Creed 2, right? that Adonis was like still trying to please his father, right? Like, okay,
Exactly.
this is the son of the guy who killed my dad, right?
Mhm,
He
mhm,
took his life. I have to prove, even from the grave, right?
mhm.
I have to prove that I'm still a Creed. I'm still this. I'm still that. I mean, in the first one, he didn't even want to be called Creed. He
Mhm.
wasn't interested. He was like, I'm a
Right,
Johnson, and that's that.
right.
So when your parents die, right, and he never got a chance to meet him, it's like, man, um, I have to still prove myself to him. I
Yeah.
have to still make myself look like I'm trying to be accepted or anything. Like sometimes we do that. Sometimes our need to be accepted,
Yeah.
especially from someone that we've never met, but they're our parent, or just
Mhm,
just in general, our need for acceptance will make us do certain things. He was still trying to please his dad by doing that. And then
mhm,
even in three, it's like you're holding on to past stuff that you need to let go, right? A
mhm,
ship that is sinking, you start throwing cargo overboard. If you
mhm.
keep the cargo on board, that ship is going to go down. So it was time to throw that stuff overboard.
I was thinking about, as you were talking, I was thinking about that scene where Dame was invited into the home and they were downstairs and Dame was looking at all of the trophies that Adonis had and he was looking at the awards. He was looking at everything. And this survivor's guilt that we have,
Oh,
it's a different type of guilt, right? It's like, oh well, I feel bad because I made it. And I think, I don't know who I was talking to about this, but I think as brown and black communities, we always tend to feel bad that we made it out because we put that weight on other people. Like, if you made it out the hood, you got to carry the hood on your back, or if you do
pay
this,
for
you're older.
everything.
Yeah, yeah, your money, your time, your resources go back. Don't forget who raised you. Don't forget your people that was with you. And it's like, okay, well, so now you're dealing with survivor's guilt. Like, this man served 18 years for me, or however long it was for me. And now I feel bad. Like, there was a moment where Creed was looking and he looked like there was a sense of shame that he achieved all of this stuff. And he's looking at Dame, who's like, I mean, I want to pay for his steak. I want to pay for this. I want to give him a leg up. I want to give him all of this other stuff. And the other trainer was like, what did he do to deserve any of this? You have people who are working for 18 years to get here into your gym and to even get an amateur fight. And you're just letting this man, what?
Jumped the line almost, he skipped
Yes.
the line and did
Mhm.
not prove his worthiness,
No.
and I like where you're going, like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, what have you done to shown or to show that
Mhm.
you're even mentally prepared to be in anybody's ring to fight?
Yeah.
Okay, you were training here, training there, right?
Mhm.
There are people who have sown into Adonis's life, who have been hanging around the gym, who have actually been fighting, who have actually been doing this because of guilt. Here's that guilt rising up again and
Mhm.
punching us right in the gut. We box with guilt and we lose every time. You're talking about
Every time.
boxing, we
Mhm.
lose with guilt. It destroys us because it's
Mhm.
like, I'm going to let you do anything. I'm going to let you say anything. I'm going to let you treat me anyway because I feel guilt. I'm going to allow you to be out of control.
Yeah.
He was the Adonis. He was the only one who could rein Dame in. If he wasn't going to do it, he wasn't going to be listening to anybody else. Lil Duke, he wasn't listening to anybody.
No.
Him and Adonis had the relationship, so it was up to Adonis to allow him to know, hey, you can't do that. You know what
Mhm.
I started thinking about?
Mhm.
Parents who feel guilty for how their children were raised. They
Mm.
don't they don't keep their children accountable,
No,
Jermaine.
no, no.
They allow their children to do whatever, to say whatever, and it's worse when it's adult parents dealing with adult
Yes.
children. It
Yes.
is horrendous because
Yes.
the adult children do whatever they want, and then you release them onto society, right? Look what happened when he encountered everybody else. It's like, man, if you didn't rein him in, he's not going to be reined in anywhere.
No. Because you, as a parent, you are their first teacher. Hey, track.
Right, right.
Like, as their parent, you are their first teacher. Like, when they go out into the world, they're not quoting, or most aren't quoting teachers and quoting other people. Like, your parents are your first examples, they are your first teachers,
Yep.
they are your first exposure to things like love and acceptance and friendship and all this other stuff. And I feel like even with Adonis's mom, she was just like, I mean, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And I think there was, I don't remember which creed it was, where they were having a conversation and she was like, I mean, I think it's when he confronted her on why she wasn't involved,
Mm.
right? And in the opening scene of Creed 1, where she walked into the juvenile detention, was like, he's a Creed, let's go. It's
Yep.
like you just changed his whole identity, and all he knows is fighting. And it's like, I think his mom tried and say, like, you're more, you can be more than a fighter. Like, that Creed name, yes, that's what got us this mansion. And yes, that's what, but you see where your father is now. And I think that's a clear indicator that it's like, just because it's attached to your name, that doesn't mean you have to do it.
Come on. Say that
Just
one more time, please.
just because it's attached to your name, it doesn't mean you need to do it.
Ibashe. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Don't be slipping into that unknown, because you know what that
Yeah,
does to me, style.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But it's like she was trying to like plead with him, like, I understand you feel like you owe us something, or I owe you something, but it's like it doesn't have to fight because your father died in the ring. And that's
Mm.
like, the ring can represent addiction, the ring could represent failure, the ring could represent anything. And it's like, if that's how your father died, logically, why would you do the same thing? Like, what point do you have to prove? And I feel like all throughout the creeds, it's like, what point do you have to prove? To the point where we get to Creed 3, and it's like, okay, no, literally, what
What
point?
point?
Like, you were retired. What is the point? Like, yeah.
Yeah. It's true. When we try to prove ourselves, I mean, it all comes back to, do we feel secure in ourselves? Do we know ourselves?
Right.
Those who lack a knowledge or understanding of their identity will try to find it anywhere. So his identity was tied up in fighting. But really, you needed to understand that you are loved. You don't have to fight anymore unless you really want to.
Yeah.
Not just in the ring. You don't have to fight in life anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Mentally, you don't have to fight. Emotionally, spiritually, you can put the gloves down, because you're
Mm-hmm.
punching and hitting people that did nothing to you. Like
Yeah.
his daughter was affected. No, he did not physically hit her, but emotionally, they're going to have some conversation about what she saw. She was afraid. I saw fear in her eyes, right? She was
Mm-hmm.
afraid of her dad. She's
Mm-hmm.
always seen him fight other people, but
Yeah.
seeing him fight her mom and bringing all that energy into the house, like, kids are intuitive, right? They
Oh
don't
yeah.
know enough yet to lie. They don't know
Yeah.
enough yet to protect themselves emotionally. They feel everything. They pick up everything.
Mm-hmm.
All that she's going to be running with. She has the fighting instinct in her. I mean, she rocked that little child out in her daycare. You know what I
We
mean?
did.
After school, in the deaf school. I mean, took that child clean out.
Mm-hmm.
She has that Creed blood in her.
Yeah.
We have to be mindful of that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? That what
Yeah.
we deal with in us, our children will also deal with. How do we
Mhm.
measure that? If we're not proving or providing a great resource or a great, like, I don't know, example of us being emotionally balanced, that could also
Mm.
transfer over to her, right?
Oh yeah.
Where she's always going to feel like she has to fight. And I know that he wanted her to be able to protect herself because of her, different ability, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just measuring that. Now you see this level of aggression. She might always be aggressive. Who knows?
Right.
So it's just that delicate balance.
Yeah. You alluded to something, and I think the most powerful part about what we do as clinicians is we can't flood people with too much help. We can't flood them, or like when we walk into the church, you can't like overpower someone with love, because it's like they're like, whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa. Like, I think people are so like, oh, I want to help, and that it becomes so off-putting to someone, because they're like, first of all, I don't even know if I trust you. I don't know
Okay.
if I trust this. I don't know. So you're gonna have to let me like get in, like first get in the door. And then once I sit there, like let me catch a vibe. Let me see what it is. But I think this is more like churchy than more clinical.
Sure.
But it's like you can't overwhelm people with too much, because they're going to resist, because it's like, what are you doing? Why? Because it's like, if you look at Adonis's life, he didn't know what real love was. He never knew what it meant to be accepted for something that he's not, for anything other than fighting, right? And I think even when in Creed 3, when him and Dame were younger, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna do this," and he was making bets for Dame, and he was like getting cuts from the money that Dame was making
Mm-hmm.
from fighting. Everything about this kid was like fight, fight, fight,
Yep.
fight.
Yep.
So he was like, that must be my identity. To the point where when his wife came in Creed 2 or Creed 1, one of them creeds, it was like she resisted him. And she's
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know. This is what I want. I don't know. Like, people naturally resist what's unfamiliar, right?
Oh,
So if
yes.
it's unfamiliar for him to not be a fighter, of course he's going to resist. There's always going to be that thing. And I think that's what kind of fueled him to stay in the gym. Because I'm like, if you're going to leave the game, leave the game. But he was like, I still got to have my foot in it. I still got to,
Yep.
because this is my identity. Like,
This is
I'm a
my
Creed.
identity.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
this is who I am. This is what I need. And it's like, really, this is not who you are. This is who life shaped you to be. Let's not
yeah.
get that twisted. Your
Mm-hmm.
life shaped you to be a fighter. Your
Mm-hmm.
whole entire environment made you
Yeah.
be a fighter. Maybe if you really peel back beyond who you are, then you realize maybe I'm not a fighter. Maybe I don't want to fight, or maybe I can explore another piece of my identity. I think we have to really take care of ourselves in that way, where we're
Mm-hmm.
not so wrapped up in one thing that it overwhelms us, right?
Yeah.
It consumes our lives.
Yeah.
And then we can't see anything else. We're completely blinded. And it's like, oh man, come on. That's why even just speaking clinically or anything with mental wellness and health, there is a level of training that you have to go through. I mean, we didn't spend 3 years in a program just for the heck of it, right?
Right.
And so,
Right.
so, so sometimes I feel that people are like, oh, okay, y'all just throw out these terms and things like that. Not if you are not trained to treat people, to help people, to
Yeah.
allow people to feel safe in your presence, things could go horribly wrong where that
Yeah.
that car will veer off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't always have the capacity. I'm non-clinical people or people who haven't really been trained, doctors, like, you go to school, you like, because you want to specialize in it, right? There are certain things that we know what to say, we know what to do, how to hold people in a moment, how to be quiet, how to speak up, to really make sure we have care and concern for people. So it's important to seek a professional. While it's awesome to speak to your friends, it's great to even see your pastor. I really want to encourage seeing a professional who has gone through the training, who knows what to say, who knows what to recommend, who knows how to hear you and listen to you, right? You can see whoever you want.
Mm-hmm.
But Adonis, sir, you need to see a clinically trained therapist. You need to be on someone's treatment plan and
Mm-hmm.
really understand what's going on. You need to get down to the layer. You need to scrape like with a scalpel.
Yes.
You need to scrape
Yes.
down and see what's going on. You will be a better man. I know you're a fictional character, but hear me in this. You will
Yeah.
be, you will be a better man. Your wife will love it. Your daughter will appreciate it. And whatever future children you have, whatever
Mm-hmm.
future things you plan to do, will
Yeah.
appreciate the time that you take. People like, I don't have time for therapy. Do you have time to live?
Mm-hmm.
Because then you have time for therapy, right? Do you have
Yeah.
time to be the best you can be for your friends, your family, your loved ones, your partner, your spouse? Then you have time for therapy. It is worth it. So that's my little spiel.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I tell people all the time, the reason why therapists in therapy works when you find the right connection
Mm-hmm.
is because we can see, like, our scope of vision is broader, right? When you're in something, it's almost like you're looking through like a telescope. That's all you see. It's just like small things, right? Like, we have almost like an eagle's eye view. We can see what's
Mm.
around you. We can see the patterns. We can see the steps. And it's like your friends are in it with you. Like, your parents are in it with you. They're too close, right? And it's like you need someone who's able to look at the whole picture and say, like, well, there's this that happened, there's mistrust over here, there's resentment over here, there's pain over there, there's low self-esteem over here, there's not understanding your value. And it's like when you have all of those pieces, they're like, oh, okay, I see where you're going now. I couldn't see it. It's like, well, right, because you're in it. It's too close. You need someone who's on the outside, and like you said, who's clinically trained to know how to walk someone through trauma. Trauma
Mhm.
is like the hardest thing to walk people through. Because again, it's uncharted territory. It's like they don't even know what's in there. They're like, I thought what I left behind there was just like sexual trauma. I didn't know that untreated sexual trauma turned me into a attention craving, mistrusting,
Mhm.
emotionally unavailable, emotionally unstable person. How did that become this? And it's like, well, because trauma doesn't like to stay by herself.
No.
She needs friends, she needs a tribe in order for her to fuel. So she's going to take memory, she's going to take your senses, she's going to take resentment, pain, anger, and she's going to have a nice little party. um and it's almost like, this is going to sound like really like vulgar, I guess, but it's almost like mice don't need to have intercourse to multiply, unfortunately. And so when you think like, oh, that's just one little mouse, just nothing, and it's like, give it 2 weeks. That's
Give it
one
two
little
weeks.
friend multiplied. And now you have a whole lot of scurries hanging around. And it's like, yeah, trauma doesn't just stay in one place. It's too big to stay in one little compartmentalized little. No, she expands.
She expands, she grows, she turns a little small trickle into a huge raging river. Like misery literally loves company. Trauma loves that company.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just what you were talking about, I'm like, man, like just seeing the visualization of that. You start out with one and then it multiplies and grows and grows and grows.
Hmm.
And when you were talking about trauma, it started making me think of trauma bonding. You know how Dame and Adonis, they came
Yeah.
together in trauma bonding.
Yeah.
But when you heal and when you grow and when you get better, if one person is stuck here and you're excelling and going higher,
Yeah.
you have to literally bring yourself back down to that level of trauma to even exist with them. So that's exactly what Adonis did, right? Dame was stuck there. He was on pause because he went to prison for a long, almost 20 years. He went away.
Yeah.
Never really got healed, was stuck right there. Came out of jail knowing what he wanted to do.
Yep.
It was the only thing on his brain. He went to sleep with it. He ate it. He wore it. It was his cloak. He wore the shoes of it. He read it. He
Hmm.
breathed it. It was everything. I need to get back in the ring. I lost my future. So he had to get back in the ring. And
Yeah.
so he had to bring Adonis right back in all that mess, right? So when you
Hmm.
have trauma bonding and when you're together in this thing and you're two or three people are going through the same thing, then when you heal and you break from it, it's important not to go back there, right?
Hmm.
Adonis could have seen Dame and said, "Hey man, how you doing? Yo, I'm glad to see you're out." I know he tried to give him money, and Dame was like, kind of proud, didn't take it. That might have been the end of it, right? But
Yeah.
Adonis, the guilt made him like, okay,
Yeah.
I got to get back with this guy. I have to try to correct my wrongs or fix the past. No
Hmm.
such thing. And we see what
Yeah.
happened: a bunch of chaos, a bunch of mess. And so, if you've separated from someone that you once bonded with in trauma, don't go back. Don't walk in reverse. Keep going. You can always honor someone or love on someone or make sure someone is okay. But you literally have to kind of undo healing and kind of take yourself back down to interact with them if you guys are in two different spaces.
That's so good. I feel like, when you are tethered to your past, it's almost like that little bungee cord. It's like, no, yeah, you can go, but you're always going to be snapped back. It's like, sure, progress, have a family, do what you got to do, but eventually that thing is going to snap you back. And
Mm,
it's like, you have to cut the cord. A lot of people ask me, like, well, how do you cut the cord to your past? Like, your past is still very much a thing. I was like, well, first of all, you have to unidentify with it, right? Your identity isn't over there. You are a person here. You have to make that cut. But then the next thing is like, you have to, I used to think that trauma provided a glass ceiling, which means you can see, but you're stuck. And I said, oh no, that glass ceiling is not a thing. It is a blurry, blacked out, like you can't see past where you are.
Mm.
Trauma doesn't allow you to see past where you are. And I feel like because Dame was watching Creed or Adonis, and because Dame was like, shoot, he has a life that I want. He wasn't able to see himself as something other than like not just a boxer, because if you really listen to their conversation, he was like, I don't just want to box, I'm supposed to be number one.
Yeah.
You're number one, so I'm coming for that. Yeah, it wasn't just, no, just give me an opportunity and let me be humble and work my way up. All I need is a ring and a place to practice. He didn't ask for that. He's like, that top position that you're at, that's what I want.
I want it.
And because Adonis couldn't hear because guilt and shame and trauma bonds was like blocking his ability to hear, he didn't hear the fact that Dame kept saying, I'm coming for your championship, I'm coming for the belt. All he knew was like, oh, I gotta help this man. And it's like, do you not realize the whole movie this man is saying he's coming for your spot? But you missed it because you were so focused on, oh, I have to hide this from my wife and I gotta deal with these emotions over here. And I gotta, and it's like, well, you were trying to manage way too
Mm-hmm.
much peso.
Way too much. You know what? And Minister Sherry said something in the comments. He wasn't healed. There was
No,
nothing healed about him in any way, in any capacity.
I
And
know.
it was like it takes trauma to really expose if you're truly healed, right? If you're really healed, then when that trauma from your past comes, you won't be interacting in a certain way. But if you're not healed, you're wearing that facade, you're wearing that mask, you've constructed this kind of false sense of who you are,
Mm-hmm.
you will be exposed. Adonis was exposed. And you know what Dame did say? I agree with you, sis. He said the entire movie, when he met him, I'm
Yeah.
coming for your spot.
Yes.
Said
Mm-hmm.
it. He looked at his trophy cases, he looked at the belt. You could see the jealousy, the envy in his
Yeah.
eyes, like
Yeah.
I'm coming for that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And it was like he kept making the shady comments. I'm just saying, like, passive aggressive people or the shady comments, all this, watch out for that and be careful of the comments that people make, right? Don't
Mm-hmm.
let anything go this year. Call
Mm-hmm.
everybody out on everything.
That's it.
Someone calls what you're doing. Oh, I see your little thing. That call everybody out on everything, because what he said was, remember when you used to something like hold my gloves, or remember you used to
Yeah.
like you're using all the moves I taught. Like, he said all these little
Mm-hmm.
statements that let him know you wouldn't be where you are without me. And
Mm-hmm.
really, if I hadn't gone to jail or prison, you wouldn't be in this spot. That's what he
Mm-hmm.
said. You
Oh
know what I mean?
yeah.
He
Mm-hmm.
said it clear as day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Adonis's need to try to right the wrong, play savior. We talk about that savior complex. He wanted to be the savior. He wanted
Mm-hmm.
to try to erase time or kind of roll back the hands of time. Look where that got you, sir.
Yeah.
Back in the ring, and really going against your friend. You know, one scene that I really want to talk about. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh! Remember when they were fighting and everyone else faded away and they were like in the cage?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, when I was looking at the kind of background of that, Michael B. Jordan said that he got directive control over that, and it was really like the mental health. They were both in a cage and they were fighting, and no one else was there, and
Mm-hmm.
they could only see each other. It was like tunnel vision. Trauma will give you that tunnel vision. You
Mm-hmm.
don't see anyone else. You just see what you want, and that's it. I was crying at that part. I lost my breath. My heart was beating. I was like, this is amazing.
I do remember that scene, and I think what I was hoping and maybe what I was
Mm.
looking for.
Okay, what were you looking for?
I was so when that scene happened, my creative brain was like, I wonder if at some point Dame's face would like be reconfigured as his own. Because I feel like what they both needed to realize is they're not fighting each other. They're really fighting.
Ooh.
And that's what mental health is. Mental health is that, like Paul said, that internal warfare where there's a
My,
whole
my.
flesh and spirit fighting, because Dame wasn't fighting Adonis. Dame was fighting that image that he had of himself. And he was like, I don't care who's in my way. I need that. And the person in his way just so happened to be Adonis. Where Adonis, he ain't fighting Dame. He's fighting all the pain that he hid. He's fighting the
Mm-hmm.
embarrassment that he had. He's fighting the shame that he had. And so that's where I thought it was going. But it didn't. I mean, it was still great. But I really thought that
Mm.
at that moment, it was like that shift of I'm in the ring and I am caged in, but it's really me that I'm fighting. It's
My
not
God,
other people. I
that
just, you know,
is good.
that's just
That
where
is
my mind
actually
went with
good.
that. But you know, it was so great. Yeah.
Listen, Ryan, if you're listening, bro, next Creed, you need to get what my girl is saying, okay, and give her full credit, okay. But it's true, they were fighting the trauma, and that scene was just impactful. And I would have liked to see what you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
That their faces would have morphed into each other. When Adonis was looking at Dame, he would have seen Adonis, and Dame looking at Adonis would have seen Dame. And I
Yeah.
think there was one point in the fight where they both morphed into the younger versions of
Yep.
themselves. They were both in each other's corner. They were in, separate corners, but they saw the kid versions of
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
If we don't deal with this pass, boy, that stuff is coming and swinging on us. We'll literally be in the boxing ring. That was the perfect setting.
Yeah.
And that is the perfect place for trauma. It will have us against the ropes. It'll
Yeah.
be knocking us down. Forget the 8 count, the 10 count. It will have us on the mat, laid out. You know what I mean? In Creed 2, Adonis was laid out a couple times, right? He was just on that mat, right?
Right. Yeah.
Eating that left and right.
Mm-hmm.
Then when he got his wits about him, he started laying out Drago's son and so forth and so on. But man, trauma will have us fighting on the ropes, fighting for our life, punching and really swinging at the air unless we deal
Yeah.
with that thing. So believe it or not, we've been talking almost an hour. Crazy, right? I do want to get ready to wrap up. I
Mhm.
just want to say thank you, my dear friend and sister, fellow co-laborer in ministry
Yes,
and
ma'am.
therapy and mental
Mhm.
wellness, all that mindfulness. So appreciative of you for being here. Your insight always blows my mind. So I really do thank you.
Thank you for the invite. You know, when you had sent me that text, I was like, "Oh yes, ma'am." Give me the date and time because I am ready. You know, and I think one last thing I just wanted to
Of
like bring
course,
in there
please.
because so as it is in the natural, so it is in the spiritual. There, you remember when we were talking about how Dame was in jail and he was watching everything,
Yep.
right? I feel like spiritually, that's how the enemy works. He watches
True.
every move, every duck, every weakness, every strength, and he's like, I'm going to develop something against that. Dame, when he was fighting against Adonis, he's like, I already know what your left hook looks like. And that's why he was able to get him. And he's like, I know what your weakness is. It's that side that Drago's son was attacking. And I feel like if we're not careful, the enemy is watching us like the roaring lion that the Bible says. And it's like he knows our weaknesses. But what Adonis started to realize is he's like, I know you're going for my weakness. So I developed a counteract, a counter hit. I don't know what the terms are.
Mm-hmm.
But I found a way to work around it. And I feel like if we're not careful, trauma will knock us out. But spiritually, the enemy's like, I got something for that pain. I got something for that weakness of yours, and I'm coming for it. And this is why we have to be mindful of where we are spiritually as well as physically, because we're not just fighting flesh and blood, as the Bible says.
My,
So
my, my,
be
my.
prepared for both the natural and the spiritual fight.
Be prepared. And sometimes the enemy will know our strategies better than we do because
Oh
he's
yes.
been watching us
Oh
in a
yeah.
way that we have not been watching ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
Dame, he watched every fight that Adonis had, and so he knew how to punch, he knew where to punch, he knew what to do, he knew how to fight like Adonis better than Adonis did, right?
Right.
He learned
Right.
his style, he learned his weak points, where the
Mm-hmm.
chain link kind of broke up. The enemy knows us. we
Yeah.
we have to make sure he doesn't know us better than ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Where our identity lies, we have to know, we have to understand who holds our future. We have to know that if we're not careful, we'll be
Mm-hmm.
knocked down and taken out by someone who has watched us over and over and over again, knows our weaknesses, knows how to tempt us, knows how to get us and to grab us, what to wave in front of our face. We
Mm-hmm.
have to be so careful. So this movie, right, it was okay, we saw it, but we can also apply it to our life.
Yeah.
How do we benefit from this? How do we make sure that we're not the ones in the ring getting knocked down by the trauma? Super, super important. Miss Jermaine, let the people know what you got going on. What do you have coming up? We want to make sure to drop your information and all that. I'm going to drop your Facebook group in the chat so people know where to contact you and get in touch with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I am doing a women podcast for women of color. It is called the I Am series. I have episode number 6 coming out tomorrow. You can catch us on my page or my business page of Fighting Chance Counseling Services. We are doing a woman series. We already did the Black Man Heal series. You can find that on my page as well. I also have a YouTube channel, AFCCS. I believe 77 is behind that as well. And that was part 1. It was so highly requested that we will come back for part 2 of the Black Man Heal series. So I am trying to be obedient to the spirit. I want to give a platform for people to heal, grow, and evolve together. So I'm doing podcasts. I'm doing just about whatever I can get my hands on these days.
Listen, that's what it is. You know, when you have a call, when you have a mandate, you know, we are Christian therapists, right? Who not only know the spiritual side, but we understand the clinical side. And so we can speak not just to the brain, but to the spirit, to the soul, and we can help people get healed and get free, because that's what it is all about. So I dropped a Fighting Chance counseling service on all, like on Selah Mindset, on Lilac. Click on that page. You'll see where all her links are. Next episode is coming up tomorrow. I did want to share also tomorrow my family's business, Harambe Learning and Culture Center. We are honoring our Black women, heroes, sheroes, trailblazers. So we will have an event tomorrow on Zoom. I'll have all that information on my page. There's plenty to do, plenty of things to support. The beautiful thing about live stream is if you can't catch it live, you can always catch it later. You can still comment, you can still like and share. We are together and we are here just to talk about the mental health things that we see in our everyday life. I'm like, shoot, maybe this is a series, you know, maybe we need to just talk about other movies, talk about other shows, because there are mental health implications in every single thing if those watching have the eyes to see, right? And some people are like, oh, I didn't even notice that. Well, you wouldn't, because that's not what, you know what I mean? You wouldn't see it. And so it takes people who are trained to see it to bring it up. We make sure we're not following the same pitfalls. So Adonis, go get your help, sir. Okay? You need recommendations? You talk to us. We'll come out to LA, honey. We'll help you out. We can do family counseling.
I can act, sir. So
hello. We can do the family counseling. We'll talk to you, your wife, your daughter, Rocky, your mom, ask her why she did what she did and all that. You know what I mean? So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you so much for the comments in the chat, for the likes. Please continue to share. We'll be back with some more things. If you want to, you can even recommend some movies that you want us to break down. Shoot, I'm thinking about going to break down Love Jones and Love and Basketball. You know what I mean? Like, all right, see? Like all those things,
I'm here for
all
it.
those
Let's
old
go.
movies, right? Where we don't, I haven't seen it, where we don't necessarily talk about these famous Black movies in our community. But it's like, what are the mental health implications in there? And how can we make sure that we're not falling into those pitfalls? So that's what this is all about. We talked about Creed 3 again. Thank you for tuning in. This is what we're doing. So happy that you were able to join. It was such an amazing movie. We'll be back to talk about some other things. Love you so much. Have a blessed night. Bye.